And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete live stream. I'm Rickey Hampton with my friend and frat brother, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Friday evening. Always good to get with my frat brother, Mike, and get caught up, try to figure out where he's been globetrotting off to covering sporting events this week as we head into the holiday season. But how you doing, man?
All right, I'm doing great. As you mentioned that, I'll be another year around the sun this time next Friday. So we got that coming up, and then tomorrow here locally we got the Battle of the Bay, but in a different slant, basketball wise. It's going to be the first time Cal and Stanford play each other as ACC conference members. So that's going to be a big to-do about all that. It's the Battle of the Bay. Then it's also, them having their inaugural moment in the ACC. And as you can see, the ACC is having a real topsy-turvy thing going on with the football playoffs coming up here. So,
and we're going to get into the football. Yeah. But Mike, it's still crazy to hear you say Cal and Stanford in the ACC. I mean, that is the Atlantic Coast Conference, right?
And they're coming from the Pacific. So we're talking about a cross-continental move, and you're going from the one coast to the other coast. So it's absolutely crazy. But
where do you think we're going with this in college athletics? Is it just going to be? I mean, it's almost professional now,
right? And it's hard.
Can it go any further? Can it just?
That's the thing is that I mean, even at Stanford, we got a situation where the starting quarterback just entered the transfer portal. So. I mean, I got to deal with that now. And then we've had basketball players enter it. So that's changed. And guess what else is happening at Stanford, or on the farm, as they call it? Andrew Luck, legendary Stanford player, along with John Elway. But Andrew Luck they just created a position for him. Yeah. He's going to be the general manager of Stanford athletics, or at least Stanford football. Have you ever heard of a general manager in college sports?
No, I mean...
Yeah, so you got that, and then I don't know if that had anything to do with the starting quarterback leaving or not, but it was like happenstance how they were kind of close to each other, and it's crazy. And one else is crazy. One else is crazy. I saw that on the quarterback's social media page, so that's a whole different thing there. They have so much power now. They could just make any announcements that they want on their social media platform.
Yeah, they could bypass the media.
Exactly.
Hey, Mike, is Stanford taking part in the NIL stuff?
Well, that's the thing that that people are upset with Stanford about, because they'll always be associated with being a school all about academia. One of the premier schools in the world, and then it's basically Ivy League adjacent. So they always feel that that's an impediment, which it does affect Northwestern, and it did affect Vanderbilt, and because those are called the Ivy Leagues of the South for Vanderbilt. Right. Ivy League in the North would be Northwestern, and then Ivy League of the West was Stanford. Stanford, out of those three, seem to be able to still pile on championships, national championships, with Tara with 3. You got the all the volleyball teams, swimming teams. They call this the School of Champions, and of course, the late Bill Wall used to call this the Conference of Champions, which is of course no more. But they seem to be able to somehow navigate through that. Well, hey, you're not going to get these 5-chip players or 5-star players or blue chip players because of your academic standards are going to be just too tough for them. But they still managed to do it. But it seemed like, especially football wise, that they were starting to, lose a lot of traction. And then of course the Coach Shaw resigns, and now we got Coach Taylor that's in there now. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get these players of that high ilk. And then, of course,
Now, is the quarterback leaving because of money?
That I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Because it was a situation where his name is Ashton Daniels, right? And so for me, what I noticed, of course, he had, Coach Shaw, but I guess during his freshman year, and they had another quarterback, McKee, who may be still in the league. I'm not sure, what his status is. I try to keep up with the players, that I've had contact with, but I'm not sure if he's on the team. But I know the kicker that lasted over both administrations, Cardi, is the starting kicker for the Chargers. So I'm keeping an eye on him. But, yeah, Daniels was the starting quarterback. I guess he took over right when Coach Taylor came in, and he came from Sacramento State. So he's implemented almost like a platoon system where he had your starting quarterback, Ashton, and Ashton scrambles a lot too. So you're going to get into that difficulty of, was he a running quarterback? And then he had Lamson that came in usually during a goal line situation. So it's like a platoon system. So I don't know if that started to catch up with him where he started saying, look, I'm tired of this, or it's hard to say. It's hard to say what the reasoning was. Was he after more NIL money? I don't know. Or did he feel like, I'm getting close to my senior year, so I want to go out with a bang somewhere else. Who knows? But, if I ever get a chance to converse with him, I would definitely, say, can you really explain what's the reason why you, made a move? Because I asked, we got a basketball player, Jalen Blakes, who used to play for Duke, and now he's over here at Stanford. So I asked him, I said, what made the transition? And I even asked one of the young ladies too, what was the transition? You got a situation here where you got a new basketball coach on the men's team, and you got a new basketball coach on the women's team. The women's team had a legend there for almost 40 years. So
right.
that's so it's like, okay, you're coming to a program, but it's not the same as it used to be. You got the legendary coach gone, and you're now in a new conference. So I don't know. It could be that. Maybe he didn't like the ACC. I can't speculate why he's trying to leave, but it is a big transition period right now. So maybe the aesthetics might not be the same.
You would think some of these guys, I can show off my skills and stay there and get that Stanford degree.
Exactly. And that's what Blake said. He said, hey, man, this is Stanford. I mean, they're legendary. Then he talked about, because at the time they were undefeated. I said, so how does it feel to walk around campus as an undefeated team? He said, look, I can look around this campus. I see, inventors, all these creative people, plus they got all these gold medalists, national champions. He said, it's just too much going on right now to be happy about being undefeated. I said, great point.
Yeah. Tiger Woods said something like that when he was there. He's like, man, people walking around there, physics and all kind of levels of higher education. I'm just a little golfer, man. Nobody cares about that around there. I mean, they should definitely lean on that. But as we were saying, it's such a different day now.
Yeah.
And the very fact you opened with Cal and Stanford playing in the ACC says it all.
Right. Hey. And then look at this. You got a team that left the Pac-12 to go to the Big Ten. Not only did they adjust, they're the number one team in the country. And they pretty much smudged out Ohio State. And then, of course, the defending national champion, Michigan, fell by the wayside. So even the Big Ten looks crazy right now.
Yeah. But that's college football. And we got we got the tournament. It's going to be seedings coming up Tuesday. So we'll see what happens there. We got championship games taking place tomorrow. And let's stay with college football, Mike.
right.
Now, since we opened up with that, with college athletics, we got the Heisman voting coming up next week. I believe on your birthday, the day after your birthday,
Yeah,
next
usually
weekend.
Saturday. So it'll be the day. Yeah.
And you know that there's, I think it's a little controversy there. I used to vote for the Heisman. I voted for the Heisman for
Oh,
years.
really?
Yeah, but if I was voting this year, it would be an easy choice for me
Shador?
because
Shador,
what Travis Hunter has
right.
done,
Right.
you know, and these other guys have had great years. The thing with Travis Hunter, we have never seen this in modern day college football.
Well, let's not forget though, Cam Ward though. A lot of people saying, well, because he's down there with the Hurricanes, that's gonna get a lot of votes.
I get Cam Ward, but my thing, we've seen great quarterback play.
Right.
The kid at Boise State, excuse my voice, we've seen great running backs. We have not seen what this kid's doing, Michael.
Well, the closest would be Charles Woodson, but Woodson didn't play offense like he's playing. I mean, but let's rewind back though. Remember the biggest thing for him back in years ago. We're gonna say back in the day, but a few years ago was, oh my God, this 5-star player is going to Jackson State. He's going to HBCU. Remember that was the big moment. Matter of fact, I just saw that on social media where they had that moment where he like did the hats and all that, and then he opened up his jacket and then he had put on a Jackson State hat. So that's the big thing there. And then now you fast forward, he could once again, change the whole trajectory of things by being the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, for sure. The finalists will be revealed Monday, and the announcement will be next Saturday, December 14th.
Right.
And
well, you want to know? We talked about birthdays. That's our guy, the late Anthony Mason's birthday. So
Mason was born on December 14th.
Born a day after me. So yeah, the 14th. So
wow.
So, yeah, that's what we can keep in mind. That's our brother, late Anthony Mason. December 14th. So, but yeah, but you got back to your voting days. Who were the candidates around that time, Frank?
Gosh, this was in the night. I know one year it was the late Steve McNair.
Ah, okay.
From Alcorn State.
Did you vote for him?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did.
Yeah, because that was one of those situations like, are they going to legitimately, even though he broke all kind of records, but of course they would always belittle it by saying, well, he did that down at these HBCUs, especially in the Alcorn, that wasn't even Grambling or, Jackson State, but, even though they're still in the SWAC, but, they're belittling and saying, yeah, he's patting out all those stats, but it's inferior competition. And then, of course, Fisher is his coach. Didn't even have him play for a couple of years. So
yeah, he said him, and I think I voted the year I believe that was '97. Woodson and
Leaf,
Peyton Manning, maybe.
Yeah, Manning and Ryan Leaf.
And Ryan Leaf.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who I voted for then, but I was going to tell you, and I was covering sports in Detroit at that time. The thing about Woodson, who was obviously an awesome player, but he didn't run a route tree like
exactly.
They throw it in the flat to Woodson, and he would do stuff with it. So that's what makes Hunter unique. And I think we talked about this earlier. I think I'm concerned because he was not even included in the vote for the best cornerback.
Jim Thorpe.
Dude's a shutdown corner, man.
I mean, but you know what? A lot of that stuff is aimed at Deion.
Exactly. And that's what scares me. You're exactly right.
Exactly.
And that's what scares me about the Heisman.
because what would happen is that you would have to give him credit for being able to abscond a player of his ilk from your alma mater and bring him to a HBCU. And then not only that, once you leave to go to Colorado, a basement team in the then Pac-12, and then all of a sudden now you've elevated that program, and then you're going to have a Heisman Trophy winner that's a multi-faceted and five-tool player, if to use a baseball metaphor, and your son is also going to be up there, and he might end up being the number one pick in the NFL. So, I mean, then all people will have to say, "Oh man, right."
I think
he's cheating.
And then I think didn't the number one player in college football just signed with him?
I believe so. Yes. So
I think you're right on point with that, and because and Deion's already called it out. If they don't vote for this man, that it would be a disgrace or something. Now, they ought to quit giving out the award. Right. And I'm totally with him. But Mike, if it happens, I will not be surprised.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, well, think about it though. You talk about that 97 year, 10 years earlier, 87. You get a guy that only caught maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns and maybe ran back a kick or two, and he was a Heisman Trophy winner over a guy in Syracuse throwing the ball down the field, accomplishing a lot of yardage, and that was
not McNabb.
No, it wasn't McNabb. It was McPherson.
What was his name?
McPherson.
Yeah.
McPherson. So McPherson was doing that in Syracuse, but they gave it to the Notre Dame guy, and I think he made their 6th or 7th Heisman Trophy winner. I said, you know what? I like Tim Brown. It's cool, but come on, man. You don't deserve no Heisman over him. I said, especially when, like I said, you're not doing like Travis. Travis got what, double-digit touchdown?
Yeah.
And then he got like multiple interceptions.
Right.
And the only one to do it like both in one game. I mean, come on. I mean, it's not even close. And you know what Woodson?
I tell you on point tonight, Mike, because McPherson, he was doing what these kids are doing today.
Exactly.
And think about it, he didn't even get drafted.
And just think, he would have been the first black quarterback to get a Heisman. It took a few years later, when
Andre Ware.
Houston.
Andre Ware got
it in 90, I believe. So that was like 3 years later. And then, of course, he gets drafted. But hey, let's throw you on a team in Detroit where there's already a black quarterback there, Rodney Peete. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, so then you have a situation where instead of it being dispersed all over the league like we had with the 15 starting quarterbacks, and as I told you, I sure thought that it'd be dwindling before the season would end. And look, you've had all kind of public benchings. I don't want to say public lynchings, but public benchings of a couple of these black quarterbacks. And then, of course, we want to talk about what happened last year with this clown in Denver, how he mistreated Russell. Then, of course, now Russell has a resurrection in Pittsburgh. And what's happening? You get people saying, "Oh, well, yeah, he's just doing what he did, where he has a great defense and he's just doing what it." I was like, dude, he just threw it 400 yards. How are you gonna make that seem like that's mediocre? 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he's transformed this offense in Pittsburgh. But all I keep hearing is that, he had the Legion of Boom when he's in Seattle. He was just an okay player.
Like, I think he got a Mike Robinson bounce, because right after you interviewed him.
That's what I don't want to take credit for it, but I'm just saying because people are like, and it was so funny, Ricky. So I walk into the locker room because, of course, I'm trying to try to interview our frat brother, right? I'm trying to talk to Top Mike. So I go to the press room and I said, "Okay, has Mike spoken yet?" They said, "Oh man, you just missed him." I'm like, "Ah." And of course, I had my ready to, kind of communicate with the brother. So then I walk in the locker room. I said, okay, let me see if I see Justin Fields or somebody. And I look around, and then I see Russ still with his uniform on. So I went over there and talked to him. I said, hey Russ, how you doing? He said, all right. He said, you feel like talking? He said, you want to talk to me? Because he was surprised because once again, everybody's ignoring him. I said, yeah. So then, of course, the media guy, whatever his position was, he's like, yeah, you want to talk? I said, yeah, I want to talk.
He started hovering around, I bet.
Yeah, because I wanted to do it on video. But then he was like, well, they looked at my press pass. It didn't have African-American athlete on, but it had something else on it. He said, well, if it's radio affiliated, why would you need a video? I was like, dude, okay, whatever. I said, because I wanted to get my recorder out, but I said, let me grab this phone real quick so this dude will leave me alone. So then I said, okay, I'm going to do it this way. And then I said, I won't be able to post it any kind of way. So then I had to get creative and use the skills I learned. I got to give TSU credit then, even though we're going through all kind of mess now. But I got to give credit for learning how to edit and all that stuff, during my TSU days. And, of course, also something I just picked up by osmosis. But, so I talked to him, and, and I asked the questions that I thought were prevalent, especially then it was the 50th anniversary of Joe Gilliam starting. And then we get into another scenario that's like kind of connected. 6 games started, and then he's put on the bench. Same thing with Justin Fields, except there was a racial element to that one because you had a lot of people that said, man, I don't want that guy our starting quarterback, and then Bradshaw comes in, and then all of a sudden, they go on that great run. But in this case, you got Russell coming in, and it's another black quarterback, so you can't say it was racially motivated. And then you got to get into, what was the dynamic? And not only that, a black coach did it. So you got a whole different scenario 50 years later where you got a black coach dealing with 2 black quarterbacks, whereas you had a white coach in 74 that had a black quarterback starting but got all kind of grief about it. And then when he made the move, people basically said, hey, how did that happen? Well, he might have been on drugs. So all of a sudden now he gets a pass and they don't say, oh, man, that was racially motivated because they threw that in there. So it's funny how things change. So then when I talked to Russ, I asked him about that. I said, 50 years ago, Joe Gilliam was a starting quarterback. Now you have 2 black quarterbacks here. Even though you haven't lived that long, what is that like? Didn't he gave
was he familiar with that?
Well, yeah.
Was he familiar with that story?
Well, he kind of remembers some of the older players, but he really got me when he said this. He said, the one thing that I'm most proud of is that I was the second black quarterback to win the Super Bowl. I said, exactly. And that right there meant a whole lot because how many times we get these black athletes that just kind of apologize for being black or try to go away from being black, by saying things like, well, I don't believe in color or I'm Kabbalah Asian or something like that.
Hey, Mike, his grandfather worked at either TSU or Fisk back in the day.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I heard that. And same thing with Odell Beckham. Didn't Odell Beckham's father have a connection with TSU?
I did not know that.
It's something like that. Yeah, it's a few little scenarios. And I heard Cam Newton almost came to TSU. And when they were there, Cam Newton was with Shannon and Stephen A. when they did the ESPN thing there during homecoming. Mm-hmm. I think Cam had mentioned that a family member went to TSU. And remember when he had that issue in Florida and he ended up going to the JUCO? From what I heard, that he almost ended up at TSU before going to Auburn.
Yeah, I think Brian Ransom did some work with him.
Well, Ransom, guess what? Ransom is in the news now because the current quarterback right now is right behind him on the list for, I think, most passing yards in the season.
At TSU?
At TSU, yeah. So Ransom is the leader, and then I can't remember the quarterback's name. Matter of fact, our black college quarterback guy, he just sent it to us, and his name has been on the list. I'm forgetting his name right now.
Yeah, I actually watched some of their game last week against Montana State, and they hung in there. They had a good year. That was a good year.
Yeah. We got to give Eddie credit.
A
Coach
good
of the
first
year.
step for them.
Coach of the year.
Yeah, I just got a little note here. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mike. I got. Yeah. We were talking. That's a good first step for them. Hopefully, they can, take another step next year. Hey, I do want to go back to. We were talking about the Heisman, but I do want to go back to baseball because we don't get to talk a lot of baseball on this show. But I think this is an important story that I read just before we came on the air, and it was written by Matt Snyder of CBS Sports, and the Hall of Fame voting is coming up in the next few weeks. Uh, in fact, they're starting their winter meetings on Sunday. A 16-person panel votes, and candidates need to get 12 of the 16 to make the Hall of Fame. The panel this year, Mike, has Ozzie Smith, Lee Smith, Paul Molitor, Eddie Murphy, not Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murray,
Yeah.
Joe Torre,
Yeah.
Tony Perez, among others. So that's a good representation of black players.
I thought Eddie was already in there. Eddie
No,
Murray?
these guys are already in the hall. But
they're the
I'm
voters.
sorry. Yeah, these guys are in the hall.
Okay.
They're on the committee that's going to be voting for these guys.
Okay.
So, and three guys that could get a look this year: Richie Allen or Dick Allen, Dave Parker, and Louis Tiant. And Mike, I look at their stats, but even as you well know, it's even more than the stats. Man, if you saw these guys play, the eye tests, Dave Parker had a cannon.
Well, Ricky, you're preaching to the choir with that because that is my all-time favorite.
I know it is, but
number 2 overall.
You don't have to be. I mean, it's pretty obvious,
right?
Whether you liked him or not. I didn't like Larry Bird, but I knew he was a great player. I mean, Dave Parker should have been in the hall. All three of these guys in my book, but this could be their chance. Your thoughts on?
Well, first of all, we need to kind of especially we got youngsters out there watching. So let's look at what kind of argument they had against him. Okay, Dick Allen had some. What was the scenario there in Philly? Didn't he have a situation where the fans didn't really care for him, or he had issues with the media? Was it?
He had issues with the media,
right? And then I'm not sure what Louis Tiant, because it seemed like everybody loved Louis Tiant, but what did they think he was like? Just basically,
he never won a World Series,
right? Never won a World Series. Okay, and then we get to my guy. Okay, 1978 MVP. Once again, should have been MVP in '79. And, of course, had the great phrase, when the leaves turn brown, I'll be wearing the Triple Crown. So, awesome. Then had one of the best performances in the All-Star game, 1979 Seattle, where he threw out 2 runners at the plate, 2 American League runners at the plate, and was the MVP of that one. And then, of course, they ended up winning the World Series that year. But, of course, the We Are Family, they kind of shunned them to the side and gave all the credit to Willie Stargell, or Pops as they called him, which I had no problem with Willie Stargell. I loved him. But Dave Parker definitely was my favorite player. But, of course, his thing was one of the things was they said, well, he didn't reach the benchmark of 3,000 hits. And I'm not sure if it was for homers either. But then also he was involved in a drug scandal that also was effective in the Pittsburgh area, where a few other players, Keith Hernandez, all kind of other players were thrown into that bunch. And then of course years later, all of a sudden now it's this, they call that the steroid era. So a lot of the 70s and 80s kind of got Well, you might probably have to even go to the 90s because then they tried to throw in Barry Bonds too. So you look at those 3 decades, it was a lot of scandal with that. And of course, Pete Rose too. So a lot of scandal in those 3 decades, but that's why they're keeping a lot of them out. And then we already know why they're keeping Pete Rose out, because they said that he'll never be back in because he, quote unquote, gambled on baseball. So, that's the thing about it, is that what's the real argument against them, especially when you have somebody that was as spectacular as Dave Parker. Not only that, when he left Pittsburgh somewhat unceremoniously, he wins the RBI title in Cincinnati. Then he goes to the A's, wins the World Series with the A's, and was DH of the year when he's with the Brewers. So the guy did it.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish up.
No, I'm just saying, he did it at every stop. And then when it really kind of like ended was when he was with the Angels, because I'll never forget, they traded him from Milwaukee to the Angels for Dante Bichette. I'll always remember that name because I was so mad. Then he goes out there, and then they trade him to Toronto, which sounds like it would have been a great thing, but they traded him to Toronto after the September 1st deadline. So when they won back-to-back World Series, Dave Parker didn't get credit for it because he got there.
He played 19 years.
Exactly.
But you said something, and that was my point in all this, because they not only do they have the numbers, but you said he was spectacular, and you're absolutely right. Yep. He was a guy, Parker's playing. Let me see what he's going to do, because I know he's going to do something.
Right.
And he might do it. He was 5'2". He might do it in the outfield. He might do it on the base pad. He might throw somebody out. He might hit a home run. So we'll keep our eyes on that going forward. But
let me throw this in there too. Another thing that kind of worked against him. He ended up replacing a person that they still adore in Pittsburgh by going out to the right field position.
Roberto
Clemente. So I think they never really wanted to give Dave Parker any kind of credit, up to that latitude. So then, of course, even though he was MVP and all that stuff, they still didn't really want to give him. And then here's another thing that he reached a milestone: the first ever $1 million a year player.
Yeah.
And they did not like that, even though it was. A lot of it had to do with incentives and all that, because it wasn't like it was the absolute contract that he had, but he ended up amassing $1 million a year. And then, of course, they made sure that they changed that by saying, well, Nolan Ryan actually was the first one to get $1 million contract. So there was
a lot of resentment behind that.
Right. Exactly.
At the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was. So that's coming. We're going to keep an eye on that. The first round of meetings are coming up, and we'll see. But Tiant, Parker, and Allen, hey, I wish them nothing but good luck going forward in the.
Now Richard Allen, I can't really say I've seen him play. So what are your?
He was more. He was in a lot of ways he was a right-handed version of Dave Parker. I mean, he was a dynamic player. He played some first base. He played some third base. Had a great arm. He played some in the outfield. Richie had run-ins with the media in Philly. He was MVP of the league. I think it was in Chicago. He was the kind of guy, if Richie was playing, you wanted to see. No. Same way with Louis Tiant. I'm sure you've seen video, and Tiant just passed, of his unique pitching style.
Right.
He could throw everything you see these guys do today, he was doing that way back then.
Right.
And he won.
On the batter. And
yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I was kid. We were kids. We all tried that. And we throw the ball to third base, so we couldn't find home plate.
You want to know something unique about Dave Parker, though? Even though you mentioned that he's left-handed, he batted left, but he was actually right-handed. When he threw those guys out, he was right-handed. He threw it with his right arm. So some people are like that. They batted left, but threw right, and vice versa.
Well, did you know this about Dave Park? He was an all-state football player
Yes.
in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and Woody Hayes wanted him to come to Ohio State.
Yeah.
Dave was a quarterback, I believe, in high school,
6'5".
but they weren't going to let him play quarterback, and he was getting money in Pittsburgh. So, I mean, to sign, for big league baseball. And one other thing about man, we ain't talked this much baseball in a while. One other thing about the Pirates during that era, Dave was on that team in 1975 that started all black players. Did you know that?
Well,
Manny Sanguian.
but don't forget though, it happened in '71 first, before Parker got there.
Well, I don't think so. Was it? Okay, give me the lineup. Was it 71?
Yeah, the '71 team, they got it first because remember that was Roberto and Pops and all those guys. They had the first black all
black.
Right, and then later on, when they got Dave Parker came around '73, '74. So then when that We Are Family team happened 8 years later, then that one didn't have an all black lineup, but they had moments where it was a predominantly black team.
Well, the story I heard was, okay, Sanguian at catcher.
Right.
Pop Starger at first, Dave Cash at second.
Mm-hmm.
Al Oliver in the outfield. I'm trying to think of the other half of that infield at that time.
Maybe Frank Tavares?
Parker was in the outfield.
Right.
Al Oliver. Our frat brother.
Al Oliver and it was Al Oliver and Dave Parker and
Lloyd. Okay.
Lloyd. Let me see.
Lloyd McClendon? No, I think Lloyd's a little younger than that. I'm gonna look that up because the guy that made it the all black team was Doc Ellis was on the mound that day.
Right.
So I could be talking about 71, but I'm gonna find that out next time we're on the air. I'm gonna have the facts on that story. I used to know it, man.
Yeah, because that '79 team you had Kent DeCove. Well, not Kent DeCove because he's a pitcher.
No, this was supposed to be.
Phil Garner is the one that made it where they didn't have all black.
This was 75. I'm thinking of, right. But I'll get that because I want to keep moving, man. Because the hour is passing by, and head over to the NBA.
Well, before we do that, though, on a baseball note, they seem to have made more progress in Vegas. So this A's thing may really be a real thing. There's people got a lot of trepidation, but they said that there's further developments in Vegas where some funding is going to be made more available. So we may see the A's there in a few years. But before that, they're going to be playing AAA baseball in Sacramento. So just a little footnote on this whole baseball.
So if the A's had a game tomorrow, where would it be?
It would be in Sacramento. That's where they're going to be in the next few years. Okay. And they have a AAA park. I think they're going to try to make some revisions to it to make it MLB friendly or appropriate. But the weather there is horrible for baseball season because it gets super hot up there in Sacramento. Isn't that?
Well, Mike, why would they leave if they're not ready to go?
Because there's issues with the ownership in the city of Oakland. I mean, and then of course, Oakland has gone from. Think about this though. Since we're still on baseball, so let's go back to the '70s. I wasn't living out here then, but I remember just watching from afar. 3 straight World Series for the A's: 70, 72, 73, 74. Right?
Yeah.
75, the Warriors win. Okay, and then 76 season, the Raiders win. They won the 77 Super Bowl. It was the 76 season. So you had a 5-year period where Oakland was like the city of champions. So then, of course, you get to the 80s, all of a sudden now San Francisco's become a big deal because of the Niners. The Giants were pretty good too, but they didn't get a World Series championship. So then you fast forward years from now, neither one of the teams are going to be in Oakland. Not one team. The Warriors are across the bay, back in Sacramento, San Francisco. The Raiders are in Vegas, and then the A's should be joining them shortly. So I pretty much call Vegas now Oakland South because that's what it's going to be. And being down there and covering the Raiders, it was a weird feeling being down there because Vegas is more of a transient city. People from all over the world living there, not people that got their boots in the ground for generations and all that. What they can say, I've been supporting this team for 40 years. So,
well, Mike, does the Oakland media still cover the Raiders?
Not as much, but every once in a while, like they'll have the preseason game maybe on up here. But you get some guys go down there, and like I said, I consider myself the media up here, so I've gone down there, and I see a couple guys from up here that are down there when I go down there. Matter of fact, I'll be going down there my birthday weekend, which is next weekend. So, and that'll be for a Monday night game against Atlanta. So hopefully I'll get a chance to once again have a conversation with our friend of the show, Ledbetter.
Do they still have I'm sure they still got a lot of Oakland people who consider themselves Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, matter of fact, when I flew down there, the first time I flew down there was for that infamous Steelers game when I was, what we just talked about earlier. And there was a lot of people from Oakland that was on that flight. And it was like an early morning flight because it was the same day flight. It was a Sunday morning, got down there, and all the guys had their Raider gear on and all that stuff. So still some people look at it as, hey, man, this is just, instead of going over to the Coliseum in East Oakland, I'll just go down to Vegas and
hang out in Vegas for a couple
days. That's how some people are looking at it instead of being bitter and upset. Some just say, hey, man, I just, now we're going to turn this into a Vegas weekend and a Raiders football game. But it can't get expensive. And then some people are just saying, no, I'm done with all these guys. I'm not even done with the city of Oakland because, the government, because they'll blame the government, whoever the mayor is. Because even our governor now was the mayor of San Francisco back in the day. And they're mad at him because the Niners ended up going down to Santa Clara, even though they're still in the Bay Area. But there's people upset up in San Francisco, like, how do you let our team leave the city? And so it's almost like when the Lions were up in Pontiac, like, okay, yeah, they're called the Detroit Lions, but technically we got to go all the way up to Oakland County, and that's like about 30 miles away, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So that's kind of what it is now. But yeah, the mayor took a they really got on him about that. They're like, hey, how dare you, while you in charge of our city, let our dear Niners leave the city? And we're getting none of that revenue now, blah, 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 blah. And of course, there's all kind of grief going on in Santa Clara where when it first got down there, it was like all these stipulations about, well, you can't have this, and we got to be really careful in the night games. And, we got to get Santa Clara used to that. And Santa Clara is right there in the heart of the Silicon Valley. So that whole dynamic down there. But that was where they have their training and their practice facility. So that's why they picked that area to move the stadium down, because that was their area where they did training camp and all that.
Hey, Mike, we only got about 10 minutes left, man.
All right.
Let's hit the association
All right.
For a minute. Just get your thoughts on the first third of the year that is we're coming up on.
Well, think about it. It's all about the Cavaliers, because the Cavaliers had that long winning streak.
20-3 so far.
Right. They're still the top team in the league, but a lot of people still think that Boston has the wherewithal to repeat. I don't know, because like I said, even though they won last year, I still can't get over how they just laid it down against the Warriors in 22. And so we don't know if they have what it takes to repeat. and we'll see. The Bucks playing a little bit better. Matter of fact, I think they're playing now, and Middleton's supposed to be back. So maybe if they get healthy, because remember they started off bad, and of course a lot of people want to blame Doc for that, and nobody really wants to say, hey Giannis, you guys had a guy that had a really good record last year, and somehow you guys got rid of him. Same thing with the Lakers, where everything seemed like it's going to be a great start with the JJ Redick as their coach, and then of course the whole experience of Bronny and all that. And here's another crazy thing: I just covered a G League game down in Santa Cruz, and they were playing the Lakers. But I had to let the people know when I wrote the story about it that, hey, you're not going to see Bronny down here because he's not doing any road games. But they played the they played the South Beach. What was it, South Bay or yes? I think it's South Beach or South Bay Lakers. That's their name, but they're still in the LA area.
What was the quality like of that game, Mike?
I mean, the thing about it is that in some cases you'll have some players that are going back and forth, so you might see a couple of players that you've seen in the league. But it's it's a step below, but it's not that bad because I remember even doing World Basketball League games when I was at Erie. Remember that league, the World Basketball League? It was 6'4" and under. Yeah. So and then I saw some players say, hey, I remember this guy, and so when you see players that you've seen at that upper level, it kind of makes it a little bit better. But then you realize that, okay, yeah, some of these guys are really, fighting for their careers, or they may be either the next step might be overseas, or maybe they'll just say, you know what, I tried it, it just didn't happen, but at least I can say I played pro basketball. So for the Warriors, their G League team is in Santa Cruz. I think the Kings had theirs out in Stockton. So some have them in their area, some have them they're kind of away. Because I think the Bucks, the Wisconsin Herd, as they're called, they're in Oshkosh. So that's a little bit farther away from Milwaukee. So it's like I said, it's okay. But if you've been used to the NBA, you do see the difference. That it's.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that.
Right.
I'm watching. Man. Maybe we'll get to see the end. Now it's only 50 seconds left. The Celtics and Bucks on my update. The Bucks are down 5, but Giannis has been playing really well for them, and yeah, they are getting Middleton back. The Lakers are up by 1. They got about a minute left against the Hawks. Mm-hmm. And see, the only thing with the NBA right now, we don't know what these teams are going to be, because teams will make moves at the deadline. This is where you're figuring out what do we need.
Well, I'm going to say teams. You can say some teams, because we've noticed that ever since the move to get Anthony Davis, Lakers haven't done anything. They haven't made any moves. Yeah. That's why they're pretty much stagnant, except for firing their coach.
Yeah, well, you're true, but it takes two to tango too, though, man.
Yeah. And that it takes two to tango. Some are aggressive and say, "Look, we're trying to get it done." You get some that just say, "Oh no, I'm kind of scared to do this. I think we're just going to go with what we have." And you have to be aggressive to say, look, we know these are very, very precious years. You got a window. If you don't practice carpe diem, you're gonna miss it. And that's what I'll never forget saying that about the Bucks back when I covered them back in the late 90s and early 2000s, before I moved out here.
But my God,
beat and lost that round, and the Pacers ended up going to the finals. Then they had the Sixers handled in that Eastern Conference Finals and lost that, and then the Sixers went to the finals. And I told the guy, I said, before I move to California, you guys gonna really look at that 2-year window. The Bucks blew it, and they may not get it. And it took 20 years before they actually won a championship.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm
You
saying.
got to strike while the fire is hot. But man, when you look at the West, Oklahoma #1 out there right now, 17-5. But then you look, Houston is the 2 seed at 15-8. Dallas 15-8, Memphis 15-8, Golden State 15-8. The Lakers are 12-10. That's only 2 games out of the second seed in terms of the loss column.
And also, so, only 2 games away from 500 too, though. So
yeah, that's true. So, but what I'm saying, the West, in the East, man, you know, Cleveland and Boston's gonna be there. And Milwaukee got a chance to get better, Orlando, but those teams seem more solid to me than Houston.
Well, but remember though, Cleveland was looking good last year and then took a dive, late. So we got to see if they can sustain this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Mitchell's been on a few teams that looked great during the regular season and fizzled in the.
Yeah, that is true, and that's why I say we really gotta wait and see. But Mike, man, we gotta get out of here, man. This hour flew by, brother. Hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, and we will be back. Check your schedule, Mike, for maybe Wednesday of next week.
All right.
And we'll go from there. Who knows where this guy's going to be covering stuff. But until then, from my friend and frat brother, Mike Roberson, I'm Rick Hampton. Peace, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, peace.
You